We're going to get started on this talk soon. I started a little bit early so Jennifer can join me. For those of you who just don't know what I do, I am a pediatric physical therapist, and I specialize mainly in birth to 3. And so I've had several years of experience. Gosh, I'm trying to think now. 7 years of experience, I think, as a pediatric physical therapist. And so I have seen the gamut. And some of you may have seen last week that I did some information on Torticollis, because March is National Torticollis and Plagiocephaly Awareness Month. And so you guys had so many great questions, but oftentimes I refer people to Baby Begin. They're incredible. And so I wanted to have a little chat tonight with Jennifer, who's the main face of their page, and answer some of your guys' questions, just talk in general about why we feel like awareness is important, what you guys can do at home to just be mindful of this and not be scared, but be proactive. And hopefully Jennifer will join me soon here. But anyone have any burning questions right out the gate, feel free to drop them here and we can answer those. A lot of what we want to talk about too is just reducing the stigma. I think I'm going to stop it and start it again because it's acting really weird. Okay. I think we're good. It stopped doing whatever it was doing. That was really weird. Sorry, guys. I am not tech savvy. Jennifer, are you there? Oh, okay. Let's see. I think she's here. Hello. Hi.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I was having tech issues. Are you okay on your end?
Yeah, I'm fine. I get like this kind of panicky feeling like, am I calling her? Is she calling me? Like, am I going to miss it? So,
No, you're good. Well, I don't even know that you missed anything because so all my apps shut down at 8 p.m. I've like set that as a thing. And so then in
nice.
the middle of it, it canceled out. So I think I cut out for a while, but I was basically just telling people that I am a PT and, I feel really passionate about this because through my experience, I've worked with so many families that this is so common, and that I wanted you to introduce yourself to Jennifer, but how I refer people to you guys all the time because you're so
Thank you.
incredible at what you do, and I don't
Thank
get
you.
to do as much of that anymore. So I would love to just have you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your account and your business and all of that. And then we'll go into
Yeah.
it.
Okay. I'm Jennifer Barnard and I own Baby Begin, and we specialize in torticollis and plagiocephaly. So my goal I started the company 14 years ago, and my goal has always been to eradicate plagiocephaly and decrease the use of helmets as much as I can. There's nothing wrong with helmets, but majority of babies, it can be prevented if we take early action. And so that means building awareness, teaching people and new moms, especially about how to prevent it, what the risk factors are, all of that, because a lot of times it can be prevented if you know about it. So I'm an occupational therapist. I do a lot of motor stuff. So everybody thinks that I'm a PT, but I'm actually an OT. And I have a team of OTs and PTs in Dallas and Houston, and then we do virtual consultations all over the world.
So awesome.
Yeah, so believe it or not, there are flatheads everywhere.
Everywhere. Yep. And I think what you said, about the helmet usage is what I was kind of saying whenever I first got on, which is we want to normalize it. We want to destigmatize it. Like nobody did anything wrong.
Nope.
But we also want to try to prevent that, right? It's very costly. It takes up time that families could be doing other things. And I do think that there is just, at least as far as the moms that I've worked with, that ended up having to go get a helmet, there is just this like guilt and feeling like other people are judging you, or that they're making assumptions or that you did something wrong. And that's just really not true.
Not at all.
And it's just crazy how prevalent this is becoming. And I think you and I want to talk about some of those factors. I hear a lot from like the older generations as far as with our whole, like, why are we doing tummy time? And why are all these babies suddenly getting torticollis? And why are they getting flat heads? And it's so intriguing to just like think about the trajectory of it all. But I know for me, one thing I wanted to speak about is us putting babies on their backs to sleep and how transformational that was for all of baby development. So how amazing that we realized, okay, babies are safer if they're on their back, but also, okay, us as therapists and us in the developmental community, which this was before I was a therapist, but we suddenly have to think, oh, okay, what do we do now? What do we do to get all that time? Think about how much a baby sleeps. So yeah, I'd love to hear your insight on that too.
Well, a quick fact, by the time a baby is 2 months old, they have spent almost 700 hours on their back.
Wow.
So if you think about that motor-wise, muscle development, skull, the skull is so malleable when a baby is born. And so if you're putting 700 hours on it's like a ball of clay. I always compare it to like a ball of clay or one of those pumpkins that you see growing in the field. When you put pressure on that soft skull, it's going to misshapen if it's not moved around a lot. So, the back sleeping was that's what changed everything. If you think about it, like you said, even motor development. And motor skills.
And I think about like the swaddling stuff too. I would assume, I don't know, but I would assume a lot of that came on the scene, like the really tight swaddling and all of that, when babies weren't on their side or towards their stomach, because suddenly now they're having to control that reflex that keeps startling them and waking them up. So that's,
that's true. Swaddle. And also containers, right? Like, so I find what I hear from families is, oh, my baby doesn't like a swaddle, but he loves to sleep in the swing. So that's the same thing. Those babies need that secure feeling. And so we're doing everything we can to have them find that, to give them that so they can sleep and so we can sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And containers, for anyone who's not familiar, it's just this special term for anything we put our babies in other than like their crib or a bassinet that's flat. So something that the baby is contained and held in a more comfortable position. And we don't want you to feel like these are evil inherently, like by themselves. We are both mothers. We know what it's like to be busy and also have, children that are pulling us in different directions. And we need to just have a minute for our mental health or for the baby to be able to sleep, like you said. And so they are not inherently bad. But what we try to educate on is that we want to then try to get twice as much time, or at minimum more time spent in a free moving position when they're awake, and even better if they're sleeping on a completely flat surface, is really what's recommended, rather than getting them somewhere that they're not moving their head and neck around and naturally stretching it out. Say anything that you want to say about containers too.
So containers, like you said, they are not bad. There's nothing wrong with using containers. What we try to educate on is just being cognizant of how much your baby is in a container. Because a lot of times I think like when we do evaluations, we see 5 containers lined up along the wall. They're not bad, but when you use those every day for 10 or 15 minutes each time, it just adds up and adds up. And so we do a lot of education on, okay, let's just add it up. Do you go to lunch with your friends and she stays in the car seat? Yes. Do you go walk around the mall? Yes. Is she in the car seat while you're getting a Starbucks? Yes. She comes home and takes a nap in the bouncy seat. We put her in the DockATot to sleep while we're eating dinner. So it just adds up. And really, if we can just think, okay, when I'm putting her down in the swing, is there an opportunity? Can I just put her on the floor? And that's all I tell my moms is just think to yourself, could I just as easily put her on the floor here or in the pack and play if, like you said, you have siblings around or dogs, that it's not really safe for them to be on the floor? Could you, though, put them in a flat surface and allow for that free movement? That's all we want to, just being cognizant, because I think, and you've spoken about this a lot, marketing to new parents is so rampant, and the marketing of products is your baby needs this to be happy. Your baby will be happier here. Your baby needs this, and they really don't.
Yeah.
I'm kind of old school. I don't promote a lot of products on Instagram because I don't think babies need a whole lot, and they certainly don't need all of these expensive containers. So if you're struggling with, should I buy this or not? My answer would be probably not.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's so many factors involved. I feel like some of those really expensive baby containers or pieces of equipment, it's like this status symbol thing. Like we go to do our baby registry and you walk in and there's this wall of beautiful exercisers and bouncers and swings. And it's like, oh, if I get that for my baby, they're going to be so happy.
Yes.
And I'm going to be a mom that I can do all these things. I can work and I can keep my house clean and my baby's content. And so I think that's a portion of it. I think a portion of it as well is the demands that are being placed on moms. When we think about it in the grand scheme of history, the working mom generation is relatively new.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme, of course, it's been several decades, but then add the layer of COVID where we not only are working moms, but so many work from home moms.
Oh, yeah.
So same expectations and requirements, but then somehow we're supposed to care for our baby because we don't feel safe sending them anywhere else. I mean, I'm hoping and praying that we're coming out of that season, but I just thought about that so much that it's really, really hard. And I hear from parents too, even pre-COVID, they would come in and I would be educating on these things and they'd say, oh, I actually thought that I was helping them to develop, helping them learn how to sit up, helping them self-soothe by being in a swing and things like that. And that's what's so interesting to me is marketing is so much more powerful than us little therapists, at grassroots level here trying to make a difference. But yeah, it's just fascinating to hear those things. And I think it's really cute for people too. I mean, I even felt this as a mom, when they do things that are beyond their age, we have this tendency to think it's really cute and sweet. But then as therapists, we know, right? Oh, they're not really ready for that yet. And so a lot of those devices don't come with good manuals. Wouldn't it be great if therapists could contribute to their user manual of this is when
that would be great. Yes, that would be great. Or this is what it's working on. Because like you said, a lot of people use the sit me ups or bumbo seats or whatever to help the baby sit, where really the baby just needs to practice rolling, pushing up by themselves, working all those muscles because it's a foundation, it's building blocks. And we don't need a 3-month-old sitting up yet. They just don't need to. They need to be on the floor. Yeah. So hopefully, rather than complicating things, hopefully by us talking about it, we're going to simplify it. You don't need all this crazy stuff. Get a good mat with some toys and put them by the window and you're good to go. If it's safe, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do want to talk about real quick with the containers and torticollis, since that's kind of while we're here. Torticollis is worsened. The neck will get tighter when a baby is in a container. And so that is part of our education with new parents is if your baby has a tight neck, it's going to get worse. because
Yeah.
the gravity holds that neck in a tightened position. The neck muscle tightens more, and they are not going to be able to pull out of it because of the gravity. So
Yeah.
if your baby has torticollis, it's really a good idea to limit that container usage to as least amount as possible.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring home. And same thing with the flat spot. If they're turning and they're cozied up in like
Yes.
a car seat or a bouncer or swing or whatever, they're going to just really rest on that spot. And it's going to be much harder for them to get up and over to look the opposite direction or to open that side of their neck. Versus if they're on a flat surface, in theory, they're going to be trying to move and look around and move all
Yes.
four limbs and get a lot more symmetry. I did want to address before I lose them. We had a couple questions.
Yeah.
Number one was, is baby wearing considered a container? Um, it's a yes and no for me, I guess. I think it can be an amazing tool. I adore and love baby wearing, and I think it can be incredible. I don't consider it in the container realm, because we can work on rotating the opposite direction, or they're up and they're doing things, they're feeling us, they're getting so much developmental benefit from that. However, I hesitate to just absolutely say no, because we do want babies to be freely moving. So it's sort of an intermediate for me. Like, ideal is flat surface. Well, we know babies aren't going to be happy all day long on a flat surface by themselves. So then my next step would be something a little bit more close to mom or dad, and being on them. And then the containers would be kind of like my last
Yeah.
choice. How do you feel about baby wearing?
I agree totally. I think baby wearing is really, really good for babies as far as the vestibular stimulation, the sound, the tactile. I mean, there's so much going on. It's a very comforting thing for babies. And for fussier babies or reflux babies, I think it's a good option rather than in the swing.
Mm-hmm.
So if it works for your family, I totally am supportive of that. But I agree that once the baby is calm and you've done a little baby wearing, go ahead and get on the floor, because that's where they're going to learn and grow and build their muscles. But I love baby wearing.
Yes, I do too. And oh, I've just lost my train of thought because I was reading another question. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I
hard
think
to
oh, I
follow.
know what I was gonna say. So I feel like baby wearing seems new. Like it's making this huge comeback, but this is an ancient thing that women did to get things done, to take care of their household and to farm and to go get water. And so it's kind of funny to me just that it's like becoming this trendy thing now, because really we put all these containers in the place of what should have been baby wearing, right?
That's
Like
that's a good point.
we have these containers so that we can be productive, when actually it's actually much more regulating for baby and calming for us when baby is on us and
Yeah.
content and we have that bond. There's so many benefits. I could go on forever, but it's one of my favorite ways. I tuck their head in facing the opposite direction, and not only does it help give that stretch, but it also, if you sheath the fabric of like a wrap carrier across
Hmm.
their head, it provides that counter pressure that we look for,
Yeah.
in trying to reshape and remold the head, which is great. Someone asked if we were going to record this. I am going to try to save this and upload it to my YouTube if you're okay with
Okay.
it,
Yeah.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
so that people
Can I
can
say
access.
one thing about the baby wearing?
Yes, go for it.
Um, so a common thing that I see, a question I get all the time is, which way do I turn the baby's head? Because they're facing you. And some people think, oh, it's going to, when you turn their head, you need to turn their head in the opposite direction of where they want to turn. So that gets confusing when the baby is facing you. But that is very important, because you're going to get a nice stretch, like you said, on the neck. It's a great time to stretch your baby's neck. I do want to add, you will not flatten the head by doing that. The flat side will be on your chest, but there's not enough pressure on your chest to flatten the head anymore.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of the head shape. What you're doing, the turning the head, is for a nice long stretch.
Yeah.
So I get
I
that
love that.
question a lot. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay, that's good. I like that clarification. Okay, someone said their baby doesn't like baby wearing. I have several baby wearing highlights.
You do, yeah.
Most babies, do you guys have any baby wearing
No,
highlights?
no, we don't.
I have a lot, and because I was so determined to make baby wearing work with both my kids,
Yeah.
that I think it is easy to struggle with how to like tie it or how to put it on. And so they do fuss at first until you get it. And then it's sort of like riding a bike. Like once you get it, you've got it. You're like, this is amazing. You know, no wonder people say that they love this.
Yeah.
So check out those highlights. But it really can be so calming and soothing for them. So lots of bouncing and shushing. And sometimes if they were really worked up, I would go in their nursery, flip the lights off, turn on white noise, just so that they start to kind of calm and I start to calm. They can feel when we're anxious, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. How do I put this on? So go watch those highlights. That should help. And another just aside is dads need to be baby wearing more. Baby wearing in the early postpartum days is very hard on your body. I both times felt just all that pressure in my low back, but I wanted to do it. So I kept doing it. And I just listened to a podcast today for this play conference I'm a part of. And this dad was talking about, like, that's a great way for dads to bond with newborn babies who they don't really know how to bond with yet. That's a perfect way. And it takes the work off of mom. And it's much easier for a dad to soothe a baby when they're in a wrap like that than it is for them to soothe them trying to hold them. And they just don't quite have their finesse down yet, maybe with all of that. So,
or confidence. Yeah. I saw a question about Plagio pillows. Can we talk about that?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So Plagio pillows are, again, marketed to new parents about how to prevent flathead or to correct flathead. And I'm here to tell you it does neither. Plagio pillows, it still puts force on the head, and it actually restricts the baby's head, which is exactly what we do not want to do. We want to free that baby's head up to make pressures equal on all sides. So I would strongly advise not to do that, not to use them. And unfortunately, they're very, very popular.
Yes, it's so frustrating. Have you guys, maybe answer in the comments, have you guys seen ads and stuff for those head reshaping pillows? I had a company actually reach out to me wanting me to promote them. And I'm like, do you know what I do? Because no, I'm not going to promote this, but it's so hard. I mean, there's no fault of the parent for thinking, oh, this will be perfect. Okay. As a new mom of multiples, oh, there's someone giving you so much love, Jennifer, that you so much via Zoom. So Jennifer and her team do Zoom calls worldwide. So if this is something you're struggling to have access to in your area, or you just want some strategies to work on at home, I'm sure she would love to help you. What's Baby Move? I don't know what Baby Move is. MOOV. Do you know what that is?
I think that's a pillow.
Okay.
Another pillow.
No pillows are recommended in a baby's bed anyway. And I know that that's something that may just be in the United States. I don't know which countries that's a flat out recommendation, but for us in the US, nothing is recommended in the crib. No loose objects.
Right. And they do advertise with the baby sleeping in it. So it's kind of misleading. So,
okay. Thoughts on elephant ears where there's a flat part in the middle, but would limit the prolonged hold of baby. Tell me what elephant ears are. Is that the same thing?
They're like padded things. Again, it restricts the movement. And I just, if you need help with positioning for sleep, we can show you how to do that. But when the baby is awake, they need to be moving. You don't need to restrict anything. So if your baby has a flat head and you're putting them on the floor, the easiest thing you can do is put everything exciting, the window, brother playing with his magnet-tiles, whatever, on the non-preferred side. Make sure you're getting therapy. Make sure you're talking to a professional to give you some stretches that are really going to benefit your baby. Don't look them up on you can look them up on Instagram, of course, because we're on here. But I really, really think it's important for parents to realize that it isn't. Instagram is really good at giving bite-sized advice and bite-sized pieces of information, but this torticollis and plagiocephaly, even motor infant development, is a huge thing that it can't be, little pieces. We have to look at the whole picture, and so don't discount the importance of seeking out a professional.
Absolutely. I just had that conversation with another peds therapist today. I met her for coffee. And I was saying, it's so hard because our job is in this online space is never to take the job of a skilled clinician.
Right.
And there's so much nuance and there's so much that, there's this boundary line that we can't cross because without evaluating a child, we can't pretend like we can give that advice. We can give very generalized advice. And,
Yeah.
I think you and I both seek to be kind of that placeholder of in between that worry and getting the evaluation, like how can I start taking actionable steps today,
Right.
but also still knowing, I hear a lot from people that they get a flat spot corrected, but then they never had PT intervention or OT intervention. And that just makes me scratch my head a little bit because there's always a reason, right? And so,
Right.
even if it was just in utero positioning that developed the flatness, that means their head was turned in utero.
Exactly.
So they may not have true torticollis where they can't overcome it, but they may have a preference for looking one direction that we need to actively work on them breaking out of.
Right.
And yeah, it's just interesting. Okay, I saw a bunch of comments come through. Emily's showing us some love. Thanks for joining, Emily. Someone asked about the snoo. What do you think about the snoo?
Oh, I knew that was going to come up. You would think that I would hate it. I don't hate it. I again, coming from old school, I think it's unnecessary. I know a lot of sleep consultants aren't crazy about it. I don't hate it. But it's very difficult when a baby has a tight neck because they're not moving at all in that thing.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of it, right? To your baby not move, but it really, really restricts their movement.
Yeah.
So I like to get them out of it sooner rather than later. I like to really watch the baby's development during the day and what they're doing on the floor. And the minute they're acting like they have any interest whatsoever in rolling back to tummy, even if it's just lifting their legs up a little bit, I like to get them out of it.
Yeah.
I have some families that leave them until 6 months, and I'm not crazy about that.
Because movement is normal. Movement and sleep is normal. And I think that's where it's really, really hard. I think we're normalizing this idea or trying to normalize this idea that babies should sleep all night from a very early age. And some babies naturally do that. That's just their circadian rhythm, and that's what they do. And this is probably, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think it's just contributing to that. And I have this weird thing that I do where when I see a product or an idea, I think back to, like hundreds of years ago. Okay, sure, we have technology now. We have great things that can make our lives easier. But developmentally speaking, like, what does this look like? What were babies doing then? How did they survive in those times? And I think a lot of it was just, it was more normalized that they woke up all night long and they were freely moving. They didn't have any special places to sleep. And so with the snoo, I think the benefit is that it's a flat surface. So that's great.
Yeah.
Obviously, if a parent is having a lot of mental struggles with lack of sleep, like I would tell every mom to go get it. If they're really struggling and that's something that's going to help you, go get it. You're not harming your baby. But again, it's very, very expensive, completely unnecessary. It's okay for babies to startle awake. It's okay for them to wake multiple times a night. And I needed to hear that myself as a new mom and didn't hear that. So if anyone needs to hear that, like, I just recommend on any side of baby development in general, like try to follow people on both sides of the issue. I've gained so much knowledge following people who are super pro sleep intervention and super like not anti, but low sleep intervention, and just learning more about that. Because I think, again, marketing, these products are so normalized. Like we want to get a full night's sleep. Who doesn't want that? But also it's okay if your baby isn't sleeping all night, and it's okay if they're moving around, and it's actually great if they're moving around because that's going to contribute to development. A lot of babies do stuff in their sleep before they do it in playtime.
Right. And I also think you have to really do what works best for your family and quit comparing yourself to other people or taking this advice for I've got to do this because she told me to do this. No, really look at your family. If you have a lot of anxiety about your baby rolling over and suffocating, and
Yes.
you like seriously have that postpartum anxiety like on level 100, and the snoo is going to help with that, get the dang snoo, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If if you think I could just use a swaddle, I'm going to try a swaddle that works for me, do that. You have to really, or I work from home and I'm stressed and I have a toddler that I've got to go pick up in 2 hours. I've got to put that baby in a bouncy seat. I just do. And I don't care if Jennifer tells me I shouldn't or not. I've got to do it to survive, right?
Yes.
You just have to take all of this information that you get. And unfortunately, it's huge amounts, and do what works for your family. So if baby wearing doesn't work for you, it's okay. If it does, great.
Yes.
So
We're here to give
if
you
you need
best
it,
case
you need
scenario.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay. Someone said, of course, but society has evolved and most women are working outside the home and can't be up all night. So yes, generations back, things were very different. I would get a little spicy and argue with that because women didn't work maybe outside the home, but they worked all day long. They, I mean, even being a stay-at-home mom, that's work. It's hard. It's not
Yeah.
ever been easy to be up all night. Um, so I don't know. I would argue with that one a little bit, but agreed 100%. You and I are both on the same page of this
Right.
is all best case scenario, but life is not best case scenario.
Right.
So knowing that you're not harming your baby, knowing that we want you to know all of the facts around all of these things, but just thinking about, is this really necessary? Could this be limiting my baby's movement? And if I have a choice, I'm just going to know kind of the tiers of this is best case
Yeah.
scenario. This
Mm-hmm.
is when we're having a really hard day. This is when I'm having a really hard day, what I need to do and
Yeah.
incorporate.
Yeah.
Um,
I saw someone ask about if they have toddlers. So if you have toddlers, a good option is a playpen. A playpen or a pack and play. Sorry,
yeah.
that's old school. Pack and play. And those are lightweight, so you could bring it in the kitchen, you could bring it in the living room, you could bring it in your bedroom while you're, folding laundry. But a pack and play is a good option. You can put a few toys in there. They don't need 400 toys in the pack and play.
Mm-hmm.
Put 2 toys in there. It'll keep their attention for
Yeah.
a little while. Or do it when the toddlers are sleeping. Then you could do full floor time there, or just blocking off an area in your home
Yeah.
where the toddlers can't easily get to the baby.
Yeah. We have a big like metal baby gate
Like
thing
the
that
gate.
can cover a huge doorway, but then also can go in a circle and it's got a gate so mom or dad can easily get in and out.
It's a good idea.
But the toddler cannot, or the dogs. Dogs and
Mm-hmm,
toddler were our
mm-hmm,
issue. Someone was asking about how often we do the stretches. There again, we talked about earlier, really whenever we're talking about actually intervening, a baby actually having torticollis or a flat spot, all of that dosing for stretching and sleep and positioning and all that stuff really needs to be with someone who's a skilled therapist who's working with your child and your family.
right.
So let's see.
But I will say, I will give one piece of advice for the stretches is I really don't like when babies are fighting or resisting the stretch. So if you're doing your stretches and the baby is resisting or crying, don't do them. Go ahead and reach back out to your therapist and just say, hey, it's not working really well. Show me something else, or am I doing it incorrectly? But really get some professional help because you don't want your baby resisting the stretch.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a really unpleasant thing. And wouldn't you agree too that if they're resisting the stretch, they're actually strengthening
Exactly.
in
The
the
muscle you're trying to
yeah,
stretch.
yeah.
Right.
So it's hard
Yeah.
because it's so tricky. And that's why it's really important to be with a skilled therapist who's
Right.
walking through this and giving you feedback and tips about your baby specifically. Okay. There's a lot of questions, but if they're not related to torticollis and containers and plagiocephaly, I'm kind of skimming over them, and maybe we can do this another time.
Yeah, yeah. I
When
saw
to start
another one. Yeah, go ahead. I like that one too.
when to start tummy time. So
Yeah.
that is related, but
Yeah.
tummy time can start.
Right
I
now.
always say, yeah, day one.
Yeah.
A lot of times pediatricians or whatever care professional is monitoring your child will say, wait till the belly button, the umbilical cord falls off, and then you can do tummy time. As therapists, we usually say on you or just monitoring them on a soft surface, completely fine from day one. And that's a big one for sure. Get started as soon as you can. The sooner the better.
And the reason we recommend that is A, your baby will tolerate tummy time a lot better if you start early. B, they're going to start working some really good muscles. They're going to get out of that flexion. They're going to start working their extensors is what we call it. And C, it gets them off the back of their head. So it helps with the head shape.
Absolutely. A great question. Will a minor flat spot correct on its own once baby is moving more, sitting and crawling? So I want to say my 2 cents on this, and then I want you to take over. This is a huge one for me. A lot of times I'll hear from parents on my account, you know, that I feel like the helmet company was pressuring us. They were saying like, you know, once your baby hits a certain age, like we won't be able to make as much of a difference. And that's kind of twofold. So I'm going to just talk about the one side, and that is that when your baby is sitting and crawling, they're no longer having reshaping pressures on their head as much as we could when they're, you know, horizontal, right? And so that's not necessarily that company trying to get you to buy in to whatever they want you to do, which is to get the helmet. It is true. And that's why we talk about awareness and prevention, because we only have a few months. We have a very small window that we feel like we can make a lot of difference. And then after that point, you know, I've been the therapist in that situation where I got a baby too late and we just didn't have a big enough window, didn't have enough of the growth spurts to get that natural head reshaping. So, and then I want you to
without a helmet, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about plagiocephaly myths, and this is one myth that I'm glad someone brought it up because we hear it quite a bit. A lot of pediatricians say that just watch it. Once they start sitting up, it'll round out. The reason why it won't round out, so that's a misconception. The reason why it won't round out is because, like you said, there's not a force on the head. So the head shape will probably not worsen because, again, there's not a force on the head to flatten it, but it's not necessarily going to get a lot better because it needs an external force to reshape. That's why a helmet works, because it's putting a force on the head 23 hours a day. So that's how much pressure it takes to reshape that skull, right? So if a baby is just sitting and having a good old time and not laying on their back very much, that's good. It'll keep the head from worsening, but it's not going to reshape it. The skull doesn't know, oh, you just need to grow right there in that flat spot. Yeah. So yeah, it's better if you have concerns and your baby is sitting up, it's probably time to go ahead and get a helmet consult if you haven't already, and just get the measurements and make a decision like that. But unfortunately, it's pretty bad advice to just wait till the baby is sitting.
Yeah.
Milder heads will get a little, like you might see a little bit of change with a mild head, but if that head is pretty significant and pretty off of the norm, then you're not going to get the change that you want.
Yeah. Okay. Someone said at 7 months, my little one's flat spot has not corrected with repositioning during sleep, lots of tummy time, no time spent in bouncers, etc. So this is a prime example of there are times where you are doing all of the right things.
Yeah.
And I feel like what I often see is that the baby maybe came out with that flat spot. They were maybe stuck in your pelvis if a mom is real petite, or maybe baby was larger, whatever the reason may be. They were kind of positioned in the pelvis in a way that contributed to that flat spot, so that right out of the gate, we were already fighting an uphill battle. That's not to say that they can't be helped, but they're much harder because we don't know how long their little head was in there like that. So that would be a prime example of a situation where I'd say go get the helmet if you feel like you need it. Be sure you get an evaluation to make sure that there's no tightness that we're just not aware of. But for sure the helmet, the sooner the better.
And I liked your post that you did about helmets and it just being cosmetic. It's not just cosmetic. And I really, really stress to people, because I used to work at the helmet, a really big helmet provider for several years, 8 years, and thousands of families. And there's so much guilt around helmets. And I want to make sure that people who are in that journey right now or thinking about it, it'll be over before you know it. You will be glad you did it because you did everything you can to fix your little baby's head. The baby tolerates it very well, and it's more common than you think. Like, you don't think anybody drives a red Jeep, but then all of a sudden you see everybody's driving a red Jeep. Like, it's more common than you think. And so I really, really stress to families, don't feel guilty. If you did everything and it's still, your baby still needed a helmet, it's okay. Because you'll fix it and it'll be over, and it'll be fast.
Yes, and it's often much more traumatic on mom than it is on baby.
Yes.
I see babies do amazing
They
with
do
them.
well.
They do great. Those things are stinky. Even if you take proper care of them, they're stinky. But I feel like that's the biggest like hill you have to overcome is that thing. But babies do well. They're so resilient and they sleep fine.
Yes.
And maybe they always slept facing that one direction. Well, suddenly they have a nice round helmet to sleep on. And so it's so nice because we get this slippery surface that they can suddenly start looking the other direction. It's great. So there's no shame. And I actually feel like I feel like they're adorable. And
they look so cute because it frames their face.
I know. I never want to like say that and put that out there because I don't want people to think I'm like, oh, just go get a helmet. Don't get intervention. But it is true. And I feel like that's usually the public's reaction too, is that they just think the babies look so cute. And I love that. That was actually one of my squirrel moments where I was thinking about, we need to talk about, it's not just cosmetic. So a lot of times people will say, well, my daughter's, she might have long hair one day. I don't think people are going to see the back of her head. And that's totally true. But if it causes one eye to be larger than the other, that not only is cosmetic, but it also can affect vision. I included in my post about how if one ear is forward or one ear is shifted up or down, that glasses won't fit properly. I know that they're starting to see some TMJ and jaw alignment issues from that whole cranial vault shifting. So maybe you can speak on that a little bit more as well, Jennifer.
We don't know how much asymmetry is of concern as far as TMJ and vision. We haven't been able to get good numbers on that, but you just have to remember, if there's a lot of asymmetry in the face, not everything's asymmetric, and everything works better when it's symmetrical. So we like to get babies as close to symmetric as we can. Simply for functioning of everything in the face. And so, and cosmetic it has a bad connotation. It's not that we're trying to make our babies perfect. We just want to get them within a norm where you don't look at, well, her face is kind of crooked. If it's in the face, to me, it's worth treating.
Yeah.
If it's just a little flat on the back, you could probably get away with it. But if it's in the face and you can see the asymmetry in the face, in my opinion, I would do a helmet just to give your child the best opportunity that you can, is to get as good a symmetry as you can.
Any other questions, you guys? It's so hard to cover the gamut in just
I know, just a short time. I did see a question about reflux. Like, what do you do with reflux babies and containers? You want me to give you my, and then you can give yours? Okay. So with reflux, it is harder. It is harder, especially if you have multiples. Like I had one that I had twins with, both had bad reflux. You don't realize that floor time is actually really good for babies with reflux. So there's different levels of severity with reflux. Is it just spitting up but the baby's perfectly happy, or is it like a serious painful reflux? So the ones that are just spitting up, if you can keep them up for 5 or 10 minutes, but then put them on the floor, the more core activation and muscle strength and all of that movement is actually really good to build the abdominal muscles. So I try to get my reflux babies on the floor as soon as possible. So if I go in for an evaluation and mom says I keep them up for 30 minutes after every feed, first of all, you're missing that good time when babies are happy after they eat, you know, so then you're putting them in a bouncy seat for 30 minutes. They're all scrunched up. They're not doing anything. And then you want to get them on the floor and have them do tummy time. They're ready for a nap. Like, I'm tired. I've sat in this recliner for 30 minutes. I just want to go to bed. Yeah. So you missed that big time. So I try to get my babies, let's try 10 minutes in the bouncy seat, and then let's put them on the floor and see what happens. And when we say on the floor, we don't necessarily mean you have to throw them on their tummy. Just put them on their back or on their sides and see how they do. You might get a little spit up, but it might, that might start to get better over time. So I try, if possible, to get my babies on the floor as soon as possible after eating.
Yeah.
What do you
say? Advice. Yeah, I feel like most containers put them in a position that compresses their abdominal contents.
Yeah.
So there's not very much space for our babies right between their belly and their esophagus. And I feel like what's so hard is we're told to keep them upright. And as parents, we can't physically hold them and keep them upright. Nobody's expecting a mom to do that, or a dad, or a nanny, or whoever it may be. But I also feel like, especially like a car seat, or my son would get so upset in the car seat if I put him in too quickly after he ate, because it did just push all those tummy contents up. So I actually feel like we may be doing a more of a disservice. So then they're fussy, and then they for sure will not do tummy time because that reflux, is already there. So I agree with that 100%. I feel like inclines have been the best thing for me as far as trying to find something that's a happy medium. Like you said, we know as therapists who aren't the ones with the babies all day, every day, that are fussing, that tummy time or back time or side lying or whatever is really, really in the long run going to be more beneficial and is going to reduce the duration of the reflux in theory. With not, you know, there are some other factors to take in, but in general. So I feel like inclines have been nice to try as a happy medium. And I do have a whole highlight on reflux. Some of it you can play with the routines too, whereas, you know, maybe they wake up from their nap and they're not quite ready to eat yet, so their belly's not full. Maybe that's a nice time that you could work in.
Great option.
Some movement. Let's see.
And like I said, just be open to trying something different. Unfortunately, pediatricians are still recommending like 20, 30 minutes after feedings. It makes me cringe a little bit. Like, just be open to, I'm going to try 10 minutes and just see.
Yeah. Someone asked, is there any way to fix a flat spot without a helmet once you notice the flatness? Yes. If you didn't catch the beginning of this, go back to the beginning whenever I upload this. It'll be uploaded here, and then I'm also going to put it on YouTube so that you can like rewind a little bit easier. I sometimes struggle with the usability of IG lives afterwards, but yes, there's many, many ways. Jennifer and her team are amazing, and they do virtual consults worldwide, so you can get her services. And there's, if you scroll up, there's lots of love for her and her calls that she does to help families. So I can't recommend her enough. I send people to you all the time. I have no idea if they ever tell you that it was me that sent them, but okay, let's see.
Thank you.
I don't know. What do you think? How are you on time? Do you want to do like 5 more minutes?
Sure. I don't even know what time it is, so
8:45.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, let's do 5 more minutes. I want to just say real quick, if your baby has a flat head and they are under 4 months of age and still sleeping on their back, we can help you fix it. We can't get a perfect head, but we can help you make the head shape look better. So you've got, that's one thing I really wanted to talk about tonight, is you've got to jump on this, because like you talked about with something, you had this much opportunity. And you have to jump on it. So time gets away from you really quick, especially you new mamas. Like, you got a lot of stuff to do. So if you're concerned about it, don't try to figure it out on yourself. Let us help you.
Yes, absolutely. Someone asked about side lying. Without going into too much detail, I also have in my Torticollis highlight, I go through kind of the steps to get them inside lying and help them be more comfortable there. Do you have any information on your page, Jennifer, about side lying?
Side lying, no.
Okay.
No, maybe we should.
Yeah, I'd love for you to
Sideline is a good option, right? Like one side, then the other side, and kind of like a rotisserie chicken. You want to cook that baby on all sides. So you're going to do right
Yes.
side, back, left side, tummy. Just cook them on all sides, and that's really good for their development to promote really good symmetrical development. But it's also, I was just looking at motor babies. Sorry. It's also really good for their head shape.
Yeah, and it can be such a calming position when you get it right.
Yes.
And that's why I
Yeah.
did the post on it, is because I would recommend side lying to my families, even in person. And then they'd go to do it, and the baby's flailing all over the place and they're ticked off. But if you get it right, they're actually a little bit more towards their tummy than truly
You're
on their
right. Yeah.
side. And it brings hands to midline, which is very calming. They can get their hands to their mouth. And it can be a really good position if you kind of get it fine tuned.
There's like a sweet spot, isn't it? And it's
Yes.
all in the hips. You just want those hips just a little bit more than you think they need to be.
Yeah, kind of think about how, like, I sleep on my
Uh-huh.
side, and you're kind of rolled
Yes.
towards your belly a little bit.
Hmm. Hmm.
Someone asked about a boppy pillow. What do you think about that, as far as, is it considered a container in your eyes?
Yeah. It is. And what I'm seeing in daycares is they say we don't use any containers, but then every baby is laying on a boppy pillow. So I'm glad that they're cutting the use of containers, but the boppy pillow does restrict your baby's movement. I love a boppy pillow for side lying. I love a boppy pillow for tummy time. But
Mm-hmm.
again, you're going to do a little bit on the boppy pillow, and then you're going to put that baby on the floor and do tummy time on the floor. Don't always use the boppy pillow. It makes tummy time easier. The baby doesn't work as hard, but you can throw it in there once a day, to mix it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on what Motor Baby said about twins or multiples early positioning?
Well, I didn't see it. What was it?
It was what Motor Baby said. Hi, ladies, definitely feel like twin moms struggle with early positioning.
For like containers.
I
Maybe that's
think
what
I
she's
think
talking
that's what
about.
they're saying. Probably just like, it's hard enough with just one, but if you have multiples, I will say I have started just trying to learn more in the baby wearing community. And there's incredible resources on wearing both your babies in multiple positions with carriers of all different price points. So that's something for sure, that I would encourage them to look into. But then also just
Flathead.
we all need to give ourselves grace and realize it's more about short bursts of doing what we're supposed to baby's tolerance than it is about the entire day looking perfect.
Right.
So we can't hold a twin mama or a mama of multiples to the same expectations as a mom being able to focus on one baby all day long. But we also can still give ourselves goals to try to work towards, and figure out a system. Like, if we know what best case scenario is, then we assess our family and our children's needs and their personalities and what we need as a parent and all of
Right.
that, and then we can make it work for us if we just know all the options. But yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's definitely harder with twins. Like, God bless you guys. I mean, it's so hard. I have moms with triplets, and it's just like, where do I put them? Like, I've got to put them somewhere. And again, I just challenge you to think, can you put them on the floor? Like
mm-hmm.
while you're feeding, if you're feeding one, if you do that and the other one's waiting, can you put them on the floor and sit next to them and talk to them while you're feeding the one?
Yeah.
Or, while you're burping one, just put the other one on their tummy on over your lap or something, like just trying to move them around. And containers are used more, but again, do you need it? If you need it, then use it. But if you don't need it, try the floor.
Absolutely. They've also got the double boppy things, and I think that's great for tummy time. I also have seen so much that connection and bond between twins. So use that to your advantage, twin mamas. Like, when you're thinking about floor time, put them close together.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a lost art too with twins sleeping in the same crib,
Right.
but I've
Yeah.
seen incredible benefits to that. Babies that were waking up all night long, you put them in the same crib. Now, that doesn't work for everyone. Again, you need to do what works for you.
Right.
Some babies are not that way, but just think about that. Just assess your children, and twins
Yeah.
have just such a special bond, and they're going to get a lot more peace and security from being with their buddy on the floor, so face them towards each other. But it is
Yeah.
hard. Give yourself all the grace.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
For sure.
And also twins are at higher risk for plagiocephaly because there's just not a whole lot of real estate in there, right? So they do tend to have plagiocephaly more. They have torticollis more. So again, if you're seeing any of that, get some help earlier, sooner rather than later.
Yes. And thinking about sooner rather than later, this is something I saw. So I worked for a state early intervention and loved it, had a great experience, but it is a lengthy process. So this is one of those things where I would say, if you feel like your baby has torticollis or flat spot, do not wait. You know, you can schedule that early intervention evaluation, but if it's going to be several weeks, figure something out. Talk to Jennifer and her team at Baby Begin, or start looking up resources online to at least get a very watered down version of what you should be doing. Maybe even consider doing a cash pay or a private insurance-based clinic to just get started, because time is of the essence. It's more, I feel like, about time. Don't you feel like, Jennifer? Time in many aspects, but like time that you're able to intervene and time spent doing the interventions than it is about doing all the things perfectly, because we don't expect parents to be able to just all day long be helping their baby's flat spot.
No, I totally agree, because if you look, even the research says treating torticollis, a 1-month-old is like a month of treatment, and a 4-month-old is 6 or 7 months. Like this is a situation where you want to jump on it. And like you said, just do something in the interim before you can get into your early childhood or another program that you're trying to get into.
Yeah. Motor Baby said time in development is crucial. So true.
Yes.
Okay, well, this was so nice.
It was so fun.
I got over my fear of doing Instagram lives. I've done 2 this week, and it's
I saw that.
nerve-wracking every time being live. The last time that I went live, I'm pretty sure before this week, was I tried to share a book with people and like do this book reading thing, and my son ended up naked, and I didn't realize he was naked on the live. So didn't have anyone naked on this live.
That's good. Yeah.
A positive. It makes me a little bit more encouraged to do it again. I didn't know what you were going to pull out, Jennifer, you know, so I was a little nervous.
No nakedness going on here, I guarantee you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. You're always such a wealth of knowledge, and just good for me to hear all these things and learn.
No, you were great. You were great. And you provide so much for these new mamas. I know that they love you, and you're so well-rounded as far as you have so much good information on so many different topics. So thank you.
Friend. Well, maybe we'll have to do this, like make it a quarterly thing, because I think people liked it. But you have a good night. I'm going to go to bed.
All right, you too. You too. See you later. Bye-bye.